here's one that compares and mentions the Ark of the Covenant and how this is related to Torah study, and then how these two things are related to the brain. So let's get into these two paragraphs. We have to add to this that the words, "They shall construct an ark out of acacia wood," refer to the people who preoccupy themselves with the Torah. "You shall overlay it with pure gold." This is an allusion to the tradition that in the future God would make a special shade for the people studying Torah and generally supporting Torah, concerning whom Solomon said in Kohelet 7:12, "For to be in the shade or shelter of wisdom is also to be in the shelter of silver." Solomon also wrote in Proverbs 3:18, "She, the Torah, is a tree of life for all those who support it." He did not write for those who study it, but for those who support it. If merely supporting Torah and its institutions is considered holding on to a tree of life, how much more must this be so for the people who actually study the Torah? So it's saying here, supporting the Torah is good and proper, but even more so for those who actually study it. You are to insert the staves into the rings. This is about the ark. This is a reference to the multitude whose duty it is to maintain Torah scholars in a manner similar to the staves maintaining the ark. This is the meaning of the words, "by means of which they will be carried or sustained by the ark." People who support Torah institutions will find themselves uplifted by what they do. Our sages in Sifra Amor, section 1-2, explain these words as meaning that such supporters of Torah, the ark, will be raised to a higher level than their brethren. We find an example very similar to this in Chulin 92, where the Talmud states, "Let the grapes pray for the leaves, for if it were not for the leaves, there would not be any grapes either." Very interesting way to look at it. People like to think that they're superior than others for their abilities or their temperament, and it's just not the case. The meaning of this parable is, when one plants a vine, one should not have in mind the grapes exclusively, although, of course, they were the reason that one plants the vine. Nonetheless, the leaves fulfill a crucial function, protecting the plant from excess heat and cold, etc. There is a statement by our sages according to which all the cubits inside the ark were broken. At any rate, the lesson to be derived from that fact is that a Torah scholar should always feel as well as deport himself in a somewhat broken manner, as opposed to appearing haughty and proud and of imposing appearance. So you're supposed to have a certain demeanor that's humble. A rational approach to these measurements. It is possible to explain the words, "They shall make an ark for me," as an instruction that the ark and its lid with the cherubs were to symbolize the three parts the human being is made of, i.e., body, soul, intellect. The wooden part of the ark represents the body of man. The 4 rings represent the 4 basic materials that the body consists of. These materials are what keep him alive and functioning. The two staves correspond to the two strings which run through man's body, i.e., the spine or the vertebrae and the spinal cord inside of it. So again, the spinal cord comes up. The two tablets which were to be deposited inside the ark represented two special organs within man's body which enable him to understand the wisdom of the Torah, i.e., the brain and the heart. The two cherubs represent the soul and the intelligence, the former being feminine, the latter being masculine. So very interesting that the two tablets which were to be deposited inside the ark represent the brain and the heart, which enable him, man, to understand the wisdom of the Torah.